In this video, I'm going to show you how you can install the hardware enablement stack in your Ubuntu MATE or Ubuntu or any of the Ubuntu derivatives, and I'm using Ubuntu MATE 18.04.2, the long-term support. Now, a way that you can tell is you can go to your System Tools, you can go to your MATE System Monitor if you're not sure which version you're using, and then when you bring up your System Monitor, highlight or click on the tab of System, the System tab. As you can see here, this is my HP Pavilion laptop. It's an older laptop. It's got the AMD processor. It's a 4-core processor. I only have around 4 gigabytes of memory. You know, that's rounded up to 4 gigabytes. And I'm using MATE version 1.20.1. And here's the kernel that I'm going to focus on. As you can see, here's my release. It's the Ubuntu 18.04.2 long-term support, which is the Bionic Beaver. It's 64-bit. But the kernel is what we're going to focus on. When you install the Ubuntu 18.04.2 by upgrading from your previous version, it's not going to install the HWE, which is the hardware enable stack by default. It's not going to allow you to have the kernel to be updated periodically. Now, the reason why you would want to update the kernel often is, let's say, for example, there's new technology coming out and you purchase something and you hook it up to your machine. With having the newest kernel available, it's more likely to work with new technology and technology of the future. If you're working with an older kernel, when you hook it up, you may have to go out and look for drivers and install them into your kernel. So when you're using the long-term support, you have the support for your software. When I say support for your software, it's generally older software, but it's software that's been fixed over a period of time, so it's very stable. So when you're sticking with the long-term support, normally people stick for it for the stability, but having a newer kernel updated periodically allows you to have the ability to install a new device in your system, find it, and start working with it. All right, on my website, and I'll have the link below on the YouTube video that goes through and explains the difference between your hardware enablement stack, referred to as HWE, kernel, and your general availability kernel, which is usually abbreviated GA kernel. Now, your GA kernel, which is your general availability kernel, usually comes out with your long-term support. Now, long-term supports are usually 5 years, and so if you've got a kernel that's old, more than likely, as I said earlier, when you hook something to it, you're going to have to start looking for drivers. With the hardware enablement, what you're doing is you're pulling the most recent version of Linux kernel into your long-term support. So you're really having the best of both worlds. You're not using the Ubuntu or Ubuntu MATE like 18.10 or either future versions, which may have newer kernels. You can stay with the long-term support and yet use the most current kernel. Now, a way that you can check to see if that you've already currently have it installed is you can copy and paste the command that I have on my web page. You bring up your terminal, you paste this into your terminal, you press the enter or return key, and as you can see here on my laptop, and this is the only machine that I haven't installed it on, it says you're not running the system with a hardware enablement stack. Your system is supported until April of 2023. So I want to enable this. Now, if you're on an older machine than what I have, you probably don't. And if your system is running smoothly and you don't have any trouble, I recommend staying with what you've got. You know, this is just if you plan on adding new devices to your computer, or if you got a current computer and you may have some problems. By installing this hardware enablement stack may fix those issues. But I'm going to show you how to do this in this video. Let me exit my terminal. Now, if you look down below here, I already showed you how to bring up the system monitor to look at what version you have. In order to enable it, you're going to have to enter this command into your terminal. So I'm going to copy this, and I guess I shouldn't have shut my terminal a while ago, but it doesn't hurt to bring it back up. Right-click, copy. I bring my terminal back up. I paste this into my terminal, and when I press the enter key, I'm going to have to enter my password. After I press the enter return key, it's going through and it's going to do its little magic. It's going to go and start installing all of this. Now, when you're prompted, now look at here, it says it needs about 316 megabytes of additional space. I'm going to hit yes. hit the enter or return key, and it's going to go through and start downloading and install what it needs. While it's doing that, if you are running an Ubuntu 18.04 or any of the Ubuntu derivatives and you are running a server, this is what you put on the server. Only for laptops and desktops use this command, and the servers use this command. So I have illustrated steps so you don't have to stop this video, but once it's finished, you need to reboot your system, and then once you reboot, you can go back and check your status by putting that same command in. So let it go through and do its thing by installing it now. It's completed the download process. It's going to go through and install. And it says when it completes, type exit and press the enter or return, reboot and restart your computer. Now I do use a dongle with this laptop. My little modem inside, I had to replace it, so I bought one external dongle. So when I reboot, I'm going to have to install the driver on here, probably. And then once I do, I'll get back online and I'll show you how to check whether or not it's the hardware stack was installed and whether it's working properly. So if you are using a Wi-Fi dongle, some of you, it may fix your problem. With the new kernel, your Wi-Fi dongle driver may be included with the new kernel. But the Wi-Fi dongle that I have on my desktop system is the same that I have here on this laptop. And when I updated it, I had to install the driver. Hopefully in the future, they will incorporate the driver for it so that if I ever have to do something like this, or as the kernel updates, I won't have to keep installing the driver for it. All right, it's going to fix and to finalize. And then there we go. Now I'm going to exit. I'm going to reboot the system, and then I will be back shortly. Okay, I just booted my system, and I had to install my Wi-Fi driver for my dongle. And as you can see, the time went by. I've been playing with it to make sure it's going to work, because what I'm fixing to show you down below, after I show you that it has installed, is how to remove your old kernel. And I did want to check out and make sure everything was going to work before I removed it. So as you can see, some time transpired since I have rebooted my computer, because I didn't want to get rid of my old kernel and then regret it later just because I used it as a demonstration on the video. But now let me show you that it did install. If you remember, I can select this by just copying it, and I can paste it into my terminal. I can open up the terminal and paste it. I'll minimize this so we won't be looking at two terminals at the same time. Press the enter key or the return key, and it shows you your hardware enablement stack, which is HWE, is supported until April 2023. So it is installed now. Now another way that you can tell that it's installed is you can go to your system tools, bring up your system monitor. In this case, since I'm using Ubuntu MATE, I bring up my MATE system monitor. I go to my system tab. As you can see here, it's the same release. That didn't change. But now the kernel changed from 4.15. It is now changed to 4.18.0-16. So it did install the newer kernel in my long-term support. So now I'm going to have the long-term support, which lasts till 2023, and I'm going to have the stable software, but I'm going to get the newest Linux kernel. So like I said, if I install a new component to my system, it will keep the updated drivers so that my system runs smoothly. And when I get something new and hook it up to it, more than likely it's going to work. I don't have to look for drivers across the internet. So that gives me the best of both worlds. Now, I'm not going to close this for just a moment. I'm going to show you what else you need to do after you use your computer for a while to confirm that your new kernel is going to work. What you do then is you're going to update your system, and after you update your system, then you're going to run the sudo apt auto remove. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'll paste it in my terminal after I update and upgrade my system. So I go sudo apt, and I can put get, but I can just say update. It'll ask for my password. I put in my password. And then after it updates my PPAs, I'm going to go and upgrade, and that way it'll tell me the command that I need to enter to remove the old kernel, which was the 4.15. Now it will remove and delete a lot of files off, saving you a lot of space on your hard drive. Now with this laptop, I don't have any other hard drives, other than occasionally I'll plug in a USB for additional storage space. But for this particular laptop, I don't use but one internal hard drive. And since it's an older one, it's not an SSD, so it's not very quick. Alright, now I'm at the point where I can just hit the up arrow, bring that back so I don't have to type as much, change update to upgrade, and I'll go through and look for any programs. And it didn't have anything to upgrade, but it says the following packages were automatically installed or no longer required. If you look, this is your old kernel, your 4.15-45 generic. If you look, it says use sudo apt auto remove to remove them. So if you just copy that, and I already had it on the clipboard anyhow for my website, I press the enter key, and it's going to go through there and it's going to remove a lot of space. If you look, it'll tell you that it'll clear up 341 megabytes of disk space. So you may want to run your computer for several hours or maybe even several days to make sure that it's going to work properly. And if it does, go through the steps at the bottom of my website, which is to update, upgrade, and then sudo apt auto remove to remove your old kernel. When you hit the Y, it will go through there and remove all the old kernel off of your system so that it will free up that amount of space. Like I said, if you got a very large hard drive and you want to keep it on there in case in the future there's something happens and you have to revert back to it, you'll have that option. But if you're someone who likes to make backups of your system and your system files, if you've got a backup for it, you probably don't need to have it on your system if you keep an external backup. You know, if you keep a backup where it's constantly backing up to overwrite your existing backup, you know, that would erase it here and then back up and change your existing file. So if you've got a way that where you had it backed up before you did this, then you're more likely you can remove it from your system, and if it ever give you trouble, you can restore your backed up what you have saved backed up on your thumb drive or an external hard drive. Now we're close to being finished with removing it, and after it does, then you can reboot your system. You don't have to, but you can reboot your system. That way you have no effects of your old kernel, and you can see that your new kernel is then in effect. And I've been using my laptop that I installed in my office since yesterday, and I did my desktop today, and I'm currently it's in the evening now at 9:05 p.m. For my last laptop. I'm finished. I'm going to hit exit, and that's it. You've now installed, if you went through and did all the procedures which I showed you here, and I have all the illustrated steps on my website, if you go through and do all that, then you will be installed your hardware enablement stack on your system. Hopefully this has been a help to you, and have a great day.